Hello again. Once more, not for the first time recently, I find the real world resembling some zany situation comedy on the television, with situations so bizarre that they could only have been dreamt up by a scriptwriter who was determined to shock the audience and stretch the bounds of credulity to breaking point. The latest instance of this comes from Scotland, where the government have issued a guide for schools aimed at supporting transgender young people in schools. And when they say young people, they mean really young, because this guidance is intended to apply to 4-year-olds and up. The implications for all children at school in Scotland are serious, because an integral part of the new guidance is that parents do not need to be informed what is happening at school with their children. To give one or two examples, parents might not be told that their 4 or 5-year-old is changing gender. The guidance is quite explicit about this. A transgender young person may not have told their family about their gender identity. Inadvertent disclosure could cause needless stress for the young person or could put them at risk and breach legal requirements. Therefore, it is best not to share information with parents or carers without considering and respecting the young person's views and rights. In other words, a 4 or 5-year-old tells a teacher that they want to change sex and the teacher won't tell the parents. We find also that a transgender young person should not be made to use the toilet or changing room of their sex assigned at birth, because there is no law in Scotland which states that only people assigned male at birth can use men's toilets and changing rooms, or that only people assigned female can use women's toilets and changing rooms. This is instead done by social convention. Are alarm bells ringing yet, I wonder? Well, this means that girls of 14 may be compelled to share their changing rooms at school with somebody who has a penis, who is also getting changed in the same room with them. And the parents will not be told about this. I can only describe it as unusual circumstance, because it would be a breach of confidentiality. As the guidance goes on to say, it is helpful to consider whether the young people's rights are being respected. Are the young people concerned being treated with dignity and respect? Are all reasonable steps being taken to accommodate the young people's needs? What about the rights of girls to have their own changing rooms? Are they being treated with dignity and respect? If their parents do somehow find out about this peculiar and undesirable situation, perhaps because their daughters don't like getting changed in a room in the presence of somebody with a penis, the school can reassure them. If young people or their parents, carers express concerns about sharing toilets or changing rooms with a transgender young person, it may be because they are concerned that the transgender young person may behave inappropriately. In this instance, schools should seek to dispel any misconceptions. A transgender young person's presence does not constitute inappropriate behaviour. I give a link in the description to this video to this strange document, and I'm able to tell viewers with perfect confidence that this is heading to England soon. The Scottish document is being given a trial, and it's already being talked of in schools in England as a model of its kind. Allow me to read one more bit so that we can plumb the depths of absolute loopiness. Recollect that we are talking here about children as young as 4 and 5. Remember, many young people can be nervous when coming out to others, so take time to listen, show empathy, and be affirming of how they feel. Have the people who wrote this nonsense ever actually met any young children? I have to ask myself. Do they seriously not know that children can be confused about reality and fantasy, and that they can believe in things like fairies, unicorns and mermaids, to say nothing of magic and magical transformations? Have they never met a small child who wished to be something other than he or she was in real life? So when a little girl of 4 says that she is really a princess, for example, we must show empathy and be affirming of how she feels? Seriously? What about a boy who believes that he is a superhero of the kind he has seen in comics and films, and that he can actually fly? Should teachers be affirming of that mistaken belief too? Or is it only if a child says that she is really, and contrary to all evidence, a boy, that this empathy and affirmation business kicks in? Boys and girls go through periods of uncertainty about their identity, especially in adolescence. Sometimes this takes the form of thinking that there is something wrong with them, and that this would all change and they would be completely normal if only they belonged to the opposite sex. This is pretty common, always has been. All the available evidence, though, suggests that left to themselves, this phase will pass. It's just part of growing up. Encouraging children to see it as an actual thing, a permanent state of affairs, can be disastrous for the child. Older viewers will remember George from the famous 5 books. She adopted a male name, and some people living nearby indulged her by calling her Master George. She really wanted to be a boy. By the time that she was 16, though, at latest, George would have grown out of this phase and become a normal young woman. Encouraging this sort of thinking, though, offering her male hormones or even surgery to remove her breasts, would have been the most irresponsible thing to do. Children and adolescents often don't know what they want, and it is our job as parents to help them through these uncertainties. In Scotland, they intend, though, to cut parents out of the loop, and the state will take it upon itself to decide what is to be done. This is a dreadful warning flag to all parents that the state in Britain is making yet another grab for power, this time for the power to decide our children's future without consulting us.